Hey, welcome to Studio 70. I'm your girl, Sharak.
And I'm Eju, or you can call me Ed. And welcome to Studio 70. We are a true crime podcast. We normally don't do read throughs, but today we're going to do it. We're actually going to read through a third book. If you haven't checked out our other episodes, we go through book one and book two of The Cell Next Door by Dylan Tallman. It deals with Chris Watts. He was in The Cell Next Door to Chris Watts, and if you're familiar with that case, and we're going to read through it. But before we do, we just want to tell you
This is for education and entertainment purposes only. Please do your own research and always be kind to everyone, friends, family, strangers.
everyone, and you guys have been awesome. And like I said, we normally don't do this, but our subscribers, our community, voted for
Right.
us to do this to make it our own. After every episode, we are going to do our reaction because that's only fair. We're not going to just read the entire book too. I think I'm going to skip the introduction, and I've been skipping the epilogues to kind of leave a little bit. So if you want to buy the books and be good, you can support the authors. So we are going to get right into it because there's a lot to cover here. So we will read the acknowledgments. I think it's good. Acknowledgments. First and foremost, I'd like to give Jamie a shout out for helping me by typing, editing, and publishing the series. You have been my rock and my day one while we work through some struggles. You have been and continue to be my ride or die through all of this and more. You are very much appreciated. To Alex Alley Eckerson, thank you for promoting this first two books in the series. Your abilities are limitless. It is people that have been through some S that can change the world. To all my readers, thank you for buying these books and learning my story. I am really not a fan of writing. However, I do this for you. All my love and clothes, you're truly Dylan Tallman. Okay, I'm going to skip over the introduction. It's very similar to the other two, so it's a little different. So let's get into chapter 1, Proverbs 7, verse 17. I have sprinkled my bed with myrrh, aloes, and cinnamon. Okay, page is stuck. Okay. The sergeant was running my phones early. This meant that she didn't have an officer to run day room. People would sit and dial, so the people didn't make it to me. I was pissed. I just wanted the day to end. I was having an off day. The conversation Chris and I had was weighing heavily on me. How was he able to cope so well with everything that had happened? Why didn't he trick on Nicole? Was it out of fear, righteousness? Was it maybe because he knew he was screwed anyway? So why take her down with him? I had so many questions, but I was reluctant to know the part about his daughters. Did he kill them? Did she kill them? Was it someone else? How would I feel about him if I knew? Would I judge the man? I knocked on the wall, called Chris to the electrical outlet on the wall from the cell next door. I have to know, and I will not judge you. Did you kill the girls? Yes or no? I asked hesitantly. He went silent. His silence was thick in the air. It was a deafening silence. I should have cast myself in the grave that was dug for them. I decided to ask him the same question from a different angle. Did you help? Did you help with the girls? I probed. He took a long, deep breath and seemed to hold it. Yes, I did, he admitted. Jezebel, I asked. Yes, Chris answered. I knew it. So basically, he's saying that Nicole Kessinger, which is NK, had been involved. The Cell Next Door, Part 3. The recreation yard at Dodge Correctional Institute was very large. It was a big gravel track to run around, 3.5 times equal to 1 mile. There is a baseball field and 3 basketball courts. There are also pull up bars and some dip bars. Chris and I were both walking around the track. He was far ahead of me while I was talking to some people on our unit. It was hot outside, so most of us had our shirts off. I jogged ahead to catch up with Chris, and I noticed something was off with him. Most people couldn't read Chris the way I could. He was so level no matter what. However, spending 17 or more hours each day talking with him really helped me learn to understand him. You good, bro? I asked Chris once I caught up and was walking beside him. His face was flushed, and he continued to look down while clenching his jaw tightly. It's nothing really, he replied nonchalantly. What happened? I asked, not knowing. What happened? I asked, knowing he was holding something back. Just some guy yelled some stuff out of a window. He finally admitted, and he looked over at the window behind us. What did he say? I asked insistently. He called me Daddy Killer, he told me. I had never heard that name before that day, so it took me a minute before it clicked with me. Those windows that are open, we walk around that bend. I asked, pointing at the windows we would walk past after we walked around the track. I noticed they were a flock of birds flying past. I began to wish I was a bird and so I could fly out of Dodge. As we passed the pull-up bars and dip bars, I told Chris to remain silent because I would take care of this. You want to yell that stuff again? I challenged the guy that had yelled those words to Chris. He stepped beside the window and hid beside it. It was pathetic. When I catch you in the hallway, I'm breaking your nose, I promise. I looked over at Chris and we continued around the track. See, that's how it's done, I said. He just looked at me with raised eyebrows. Geez, man, was all he managed to say at the moment. Chris was in prison for the long haul. He was going to have to learn how to handle these situations, even more so than other inmates because of his attention attached to his name. After we went around the track without any more disturbances, the guard came over the loudspeaker to announce that rec was over. We were on the far end of the track, so we had to cut across the field to reach the gate quicker to go back inside. We walked slowly because our 40 minutes or less outside was precious to us. On the way inside, this old, short, bald-headed CO told me to tuck my shirt in. I decided that I wasn't going to do it, so he kept yelling that order as we walked further away from him toward our unit. As we entered Unit 11, I was again told to tuck my shirt in, and again I refused. We were headed to our cells anyway. Dodge was so petty. Who tucks their t-shirt into some short-ass gym shorts? I went into my cell next to Chris. There was nothing but a cot with a mattress, a pile of books, and a stack of paperwork. I had some canteen and a little bit of clothes that Chris had given me. It really sucked living the way I had to live because of my non-prisoner status. I heard a light tapping on the wall coming from Chris's cell, so I grabbed my chair and posted it up by the electrical outlet on the wall. This outlet was directly connected to the outlet on his wall adjacent cell. The walls were damp from the humidity. I appreciate you telling this guy off for me, Chris thanked me. What he said was highly disrespectful, so no problem, I replied. What if we do see that guy again, he asked me. Then I will do like Jesus would do, I replied. And what would Jesus do, Chris asked, almost expecting my next response. He would slap him on the cheek and put his nose on his other cheek, I confirmed. I am certain Jesus said that a different way, he laughed. Well, that's how I interpret it as it was written. Let it be done, I promised. You know, I thought all that stuff was in the past until that guy yelled that. I remembered my first 40 days in Dodge. I was all over the news. They had to move me into a back cell hall, and that kept me separated from everybody, he explained. Well, you graduated to the big hallway, and as long as I'm in here, you're straight. You'll have a-holes, but some solid people will embrace you. Also, a lot of bad characters will try to embrace you too, so it's better to stick to yourself sometimes, I informed him. I have a question sort off topic. What was it like being a dad? Because I don't have kids, I asked. It's great. You know, it's the best thing. You go about life for them. You get to buy them gifts and see the look on their faces. You bring them cheer by something as simple as ice cream. Being a dad is a big responsibility, a great accomplishment overall, he expounded. I wondered how he could kill them if he felt as he did. I know I never could, no matter how I felt about some woman. Yeah, perhaps one day I'll find that someone special that I can build a family with, or I just start knocking up hoes when I get out, I said. Yes and no. Yes is finding a special woman, but no to knocking up hoes, Chris corrected me. Look, I'm a big double S, no less, so I effed with bad bees. I'm trying to edit these words, sorry. I'm doing a clean version. I informed him. He chuckled at this, but I was 70% serious. You are a mess, and may the Lord rebuke you in the name of Jesus Christ, Chris replied. I laughed. I can't argue when you bring Jesus into it, I said. Chris and I came from very different walks of life. However, we clicked like one spirit. That reminds me that I wrote a prayer. It's called Sweet Child of Mine, he said. Wait, that's a song, I informed him before he read it to me. I know, Guns N' Roses, but it's the name of a prayer. Check it out. The blessings of life I have taken for granted, the miraculous I have made deem ordinary, the supernatural I have received as natural, the birth of new life into my life I perceived as an everyday part of life. As he read, my mind wandered for a quick minute, thinking about the blessings he had in his two daughters and a baby on the way. He continued to read the prayer. These blessings grew up as a green olive tree in my house, with a sparkle in their eye and a smile that would have shine in the darkest room. Their energy would last for days on end, sometimes their questions too. They even picked out a book about a train just to hear me say choo choo. My mind tries to wander again, but I continue to listen intently. Their kisses I thought would last forever, hugs that would melt my heart. Never in a million years did I think we would be apart. Oh, sweet child of mine. Those blessings are gone now, taken at a blink of an eye. I was a bit put off by how he could think that way if he killed his children. I continued to listen as he read the rest of his prayer. I think to myself what happened as I wander about the cold night. It wasn't until you called me, O Lord, out of a dead slumber I arose. When you touched me, you quickened me, making though concrete grow a rose. I know love now, love that I never knew before, love that I wish I could have shown because you dwell at my core. I was totally focused on his words, while at the same time thinking about his children again. My hope springs internal because my hope is in you. I will see those blessings again because I have given my life to you. You are my eternal Father, a love that will stand the test of time. Oh, how I yearn for the day you say, welcome home, sweet child of mine. In Jesus' name, amen. Psalm 52, verse 8, Isaiah 9, verse 6. That's deep, bro. I like that one. It almost tells a story without telling the story, I told him. Yep. Yeah, the Lord put it on my heart to write, he explained, except that the Lord stole it from Guns N' Roses, I pointed out as we both laughed at this. I was trying to lighten the mood, is the best remedy for depressing times. I am sure that it was not the Lord's intention, Chris said as he stifled a laugh. I realized that he vented about his girls in the entry he wrote and read to me. People were going to see this soon as it would be in the book I was publishing for us. How could he have murdered them in cold blood and write such a prayer? It was an enigma. Next, our doors popped open for the day room. I stepped out, and on my left was Chris with a photo album. This is my parents. Here is my sister, he said, pointing to a photo of a pretty woman. He had a picture with the other ones on the page. She's sexy, bro, I admitted. Chris told me that lusting is a sin and that all of that with it. He continued to show me pictures of people. These are my daughters. This is the youngest one. This is the older one. This one here is my wife. He pointed to them in the photo album, half proud of them as if he didn't kill them. He spoke about them as if they were still alive. You have a beautiful family, bro. I envy you, I said, actually half meaning it. He had truly had the perfect life with a beautiful wife and kids, so that part I envied. I certainly didn't envy the part where he killed them. Chris got on the phone and called his parents while I got on the phone and called Christina. I told her I'd been thinking about her friend's request, armchair detective. I was also going to have Chris send her the manuscript because since we wrote all of it on my legal loan paper, the CO saw it and then they might confiscate it. For almost 7 months, we put our mind, body, heart, and soul into those books. Christina promised to get them published. All she had to do was be my feet out there. If she let me guide her, then we would make all of this happen. I decided to trust her, so I gave Chris the manila envelope with her address on it. He had to be the one to send it out because I didn't have the funds on my account to do so. After day room, we locked back in our cells. our cages. We were going to send out our book to be published soon. So I clung tightly to the hope she would either keep her word or dash the hopes to pieces. We had to have faith. We didn't have much choice. Whew, that was long, but that was
Yeah, that was
chapter
a long
2.
one.
You start while I grab some water. Good.
Yeah, that definitely was a long one. There's a lot of intake on that one. I know one part that captured my attention was when somebody said father killer. I'm surprised Chris didn't have any fights in jail. I know he was transferred to this jail cell, but people usually in there for when they're in there for murder, it usually someone is always attacking them. So that was interesting so far. I mean, maybe it could have happened. Maybe Dylan wasn't there. Well, Tillman didn't know about it or just didn't write about it, but that was just interesting. But then again, the album book, right, of the family, that's just heartbreaking right there because, he has that album book. He has pictures of his,
Yep.
of his family, which is definitely interesting too.
So what I found interesting is that, in being a Christian on this, is that they're talking about God, they're throwing verses, and the verses are helping them express themselves.
Hmm.
So these books are good, based on their conversation. The verses are very good to express what they're feeling, and that's great. But what's interesting is that they're mentioning these other books, and maybe they didn't think to add it. Dylan didn't think to add it to these books, but they talk about Jesus and how faith has helped them, and how they try to get people to the Lord, but they're not really putting things in these books that could help bring people to the Lord. You know what I'm saying?
Yeah.
For all the talk that they're talking about that, maybe that's what the other books are for, but they know a lot of people are going to read these books, and that would have been another opportunity to be a little more explicit in terms of how has their faith improved them? How do they want to turn other people
To
to Jesus? So
Jesus Christ. Yeah.
yeah, I was surprised that they didn't put more into that. But on the flip side, they're doing a good job of
Yeah, they
using the
mentioned
verses to explain their feelings.
right, exactly. And like they saying that they are novice at this, right? He normally doesn't do this, and
Yeah. And they
due to the
probably,
background that they have, this is is what they know, and they are
yeah,
mentioning, which is pretty much in all three books consistently, consistency on that, which is good,
yeah, I
and
just
some
think that,
verses.
yeah, I just think that they thought I'm writing this book. Yeah, because they're not used to, probably like you're saying, being an author, they're probably just thinking this book is really about our conversations. I'm keeping it to that, not thinking they can weave in some of the other things from the other books in here and talking about their faith.
Right.
But,
And it was
but
interesting. I know I'm sorry, but we had a show and they said that Chris didn't know these books was going to be released, but it looked like he actually,
yeah, I think so.
yeah. So he definitely knows these. It's interesting.
Yeah,
And
I
it would be
just
interesting too. I know that NK probably had hands on these books saying, I want to know what he said about me. I
oh,
mean,
I'm sure, right? Probably got him first thing. I was just gonna say before your comment that I just think if they were to explain, how their faith has helped them, it would, bring a little bit more weight into what they're saying. Because a lot of times people think they use this stuff just, they're murderers, they're criminals. They're just saying this stuff because now they want to be perceived in one way. Show how they have changed or how they're using this in a more positive way. And I just think it would give them more weight other than just throwing around verses. I'm not saying it negatively because I think they're doing a good job of expressing themselves, but just putting verses in here too as well randomly. I
mm,
don't know. It just would have been good if they had more in here about how this has changed your life and
yeah, I agree with
all
that
that.
as well. But like you said,
It's I don't.
and
I'm not
and
just being a little
and
critiquing.
just
Sorry.
to be, and as I'm reading these books, I know a lot of stuff is repeat, but I really believe he might come out with part four and part
Yeah, I
five.
think there is going to be.
Yeah, I
And
think
again,
there's
I'm
going to
not
be
trying to be
something.
negative. I'm just trying to throw out things that could be an improvement and help with their relaying of
And
information.
I
That's
think
all.
is there are in every book I see there's a little bit like this one has titles. Every book seems to be a little bit of an improvement of the writing skills and what he's trying to say. So maybe part four, part five, he might actually do that. He may be listening to us and take the advice, right?
Yeah. Again, it's all good. It's all help.
Yeah.
Okay, so let's get into chapter 2, Proverbs 7 verse 23. Until a narrow until an arrow pierces through his liver as a bird hastens to the snare. So he does not know that it will cost him his life. They say that time heals. In that case, I should have been in top condition. However, my arms were killing me on the preacher's curl bar. Chris and I were working biceps and triceps. I weighed 165 pounds to his 207 pounds, but I was lifting everything he could. I was still strong from all my time in prison lifting weights. A lot of my inmates just stood around looking confused. Most of the crew on our unit had never been to prison before and didn't know how to use the weights. They watched and observed how we used them, and then they would attempt to imitate us. There was a big window that separated the guards from us, but they could, of course, watch our every move. I was waiting for my turn on the universal pull down bar when this guy walked up to me and got close. He was almost in my bubble and staring me down. You have about 2.3 seconds to get out of my face and tuck your belly in before approaching me, I said to this pot-bellied biker-looking dude. Suddenly, Chris was beside this guy. Yeah, or I'm going to wrap this cord around your neck and let go, Chris threatened. Let me repeat that because that sounds weird. Yeah, or I'm going to wrap this cord around your neck and let go, Chris threatened. Okay, that's how it's written. Referring to the pull-down bar, hanging down loosely. The guy looked at both of us and walked away without saying a word. We scared him, bro, I nudged Chris. We both looked at each other and laughed. I didn't necessarily need his backup, but it was good having the knowledge that he had my back. It seemed as Chris was getting a spine finally. We finished our workout and walked back out to the unit, drenched in sweat. The walk back down the long hallway of Dodge to Unit 11 seemed like miles away. My body was solid, though it felt like jelly now. When we got back to ourselves, Chris decided he was going to do push-ups. That meant I had to do push-ups too, or he would be the one who outdid me in the workout for the day. After our workout, Chris and I both separated. We worked on our books. We were writing. It was our God Plan series. I felt led to write a poem called Who Can I Trust? It was for my book called Poetic Knowledge. I called Chris to the outlet and read him the poem. Who can I trust when the enemy encloses around me? Real life experience proves my flock will flee, leaving me those who wish me 6 feet deep. Who can I trust? I guard my heart and close the gates of my mouth to the one whose household was above my head. It began with Eve to establish every unsaved soul to inherit sin's reward with the dead. When the ones I put in my life on the line for are not there for me, when I need them instead, people give me empty words with their lips, for they say and not to do. Am I misled? Who can I trust? In this time of greed, this time of deceit, this time of need, how about this time to give free? Everybody seems to have an ulterior motive if they act kindly, way of Satan's seed. Will there be faith on earth when the Lord comes to collect debts unto thee? Who can I trust? I only put my trust in God and serve to the end until himself he comes to collect me eternally. I put my trust in God, in whom I can trust. In his glorious name, you all know it. Confess it. Jesus Christ, amen. Amen, Chris said. Little did I know that 4 years later, I would realize that I wrote that for him. This got us talking about trusting those close to us. You know, that poem really hit close to home for me, he said. How so? I asked. He exhaled loudly with a sigh, he admitted. I can't always trust my parents. Why not? I asked him. Because they talk to the media a lot, he said hesitantly. I understood this. There were certain things about he couldn't talk to them about, just in case they told those things to the media. Chris despised the media. There was nothing he hated more. Is that all? I asked, trying to dig deeper. I just felt there was more reasons than just that. Just things trying to open the medical files that had been sealed on my daughters. He sighed yet again. Why have the medical files been sealed? I asked. Because the DA and my wife's family, he replied. Is that all? I asked. I didn't really understand it. A couple small things, not really important to the subject of your poem. Just the fact that we can't fully trust anyone but God, he observed. I definitely concurred. What do you did you what did you write, bro? I asked. Well, nothing really, just another prayer. Do you want to hear how it goes? Chris asked me. Of course, I replied. It's called Rescue Story. I started working on it in March, but I decided to finish it. Check it out, he said, and began reading. I have backslidden. I am like sheep gone astray from the flock, and I have fallen into a pit. The snare of my enemy has entrapped me. The words of the harlot have brought me low. Her flattening speech was like drops of honey that pierced my heart and soul. Little did I know all her guests were in the chamber of death. Damn, I thought, he was talking about the mistress. He continued reading. The lust of the eyes, the lust of the flesh, and the pride of life. How did I not see it? How did I let it happen? The blessings you have bestowed upon me were right in front of me, and I followed the perfume of a strange woman. He was talking about what he had with his family, his wife and his two beautiful daughters. He was blind to it and always saw the mistress and sees it now, I thought. He continued to read the rest of what he had written. The web of the enemy squeezes around my heart and is cocooning my soul to the point of suffocation. The enemy and his Jezebel mock and scourge me as they celebrate another capture. But oh, that men would praise the Lord for his goodness and for his wonderful works to the children of men. You, O Lord, did not leave me to captivate or condemn. You heard the prayer of the destitute and the prisoner appointed to death. You opened my eyes. You made my ears ready to perceive. And you said, come forth. The web of death loosens its grip, and I walk into the light of your presence. As I humbly kneel before you, you say, go and sin no more. Your faith has made me whole, he finished. Bro, that's about your transformation, your testimony, I pointed out. I didn't speak of noticing anything that was venting about it, but it had to do with escaping the death penalty. How he came to Christ when the filth of the world was heavy upon him. He kneeled and gave his life completely to God, and he felt his hand on him. He told him before. There was a lot more that I read into it, but I let it be for now. You know, people are going to be reading this with a microscope. They will learn stuff that they are looking for, sure. However, they will also receive something they're not searching for, and that's the message of Christ, Chris explained. It was actually a genius way of telling the truth about the case. He didn't want to come out and say, rather give the message with a message. Genius. The truth shall set you free, right? I said, knowing this was going to be very interesting. And that's the end of chapter 2. So I'll have you start as I drink more water. Go ahead.
Oh no, that's yeah. So a lot they still bringing in Jesus Christ, which is good, and they definitely so he related that which it is to NK, right? Some of the things he said and leading to the perfume and stuff. Yeah, so he's actually understanding and knowing that that was like a correlation there.
Yeah, knowing that Chris was an introvert, I
Mm-hmm.
think this is a good way for him to communicate.
Communicate, yeah.
Now, in his mind, he's also trying to do two things at once. He's trying to help other people. He's trying to give faith and give the word and still explaining
Mm-hmm.
stuff. Um,
I think he did the same thing when he did the song too. Remember when he was talking to
yeah.
NK, he's an introvert, so he was like, okay, he did that through song, and we did a great episode on that as well.
It's good that he's trying to do this. I think what's hard is that when you write in such a way, and if people don't know Jesus, they get confused. The words are too over people's
Right,
heads.
exactly.
But it's an attempt to do both, which is good. It's probably also good therapy for himself. Um, so that's good. And again, all this is taken in contents. We don't know his heart. We don't know how genuine he is. And all Dylan is doing is just, relaying the information
But I think
to
it would
the
have been more
outside.
powerful if Chris Watts would have wrote some of the quote, some of it as well. It would have been like this is it
Yeah.
just would have, because that would have been way more powerful if Chris Watts would have wrote a chapter saying,
Yeah. That's
and
see,
it could have been a mix of both of them, which would have been good because
yeah,
this is
exactly.
what Chris Watts wrote.
Yeah, because I mean, it's pretty much like that. again, we're not knocking the book. We're just trying to figure out ways that could have been improved or for the future.
Exactly. Yeah.
If you're gonna go this far with it, just just do it. Just have it be co-written. I know there's other books and stuff, but
Yep.
yeah,
And I noticed when he does the topic, he doesn't stick to the topic. Usually, when you have a topic, that's what the main meat of the story is, right? So,
yeah.
just for the future, just have a main idea.
We're talking to a woman next to me who has authored her own book,
Oh
so
yeah, dude.
that's why she's putting in. Should I pitch the book? Is it still available?
Yeah, of course. It's on
All
Amazon.
right, so we'll
Could
say
throw
that
that
if
in
you're
there.
interested in Chirac's information about her book, it's called. Go ahead, you
Y-
plug it.
You know what it is. It's definitely as a good book, and I wrote it in 2017. It's still raising from ashes. It's an autograph. It's a book that I wrote about myself, and it's a healing process too. So I think that's the same thing they doing as well. Is writing is just beautiful, and when you can talk about it in certain ways, it just make your life comes more vivid, more surreal, and it just makes you a better person.
So this is a message author to author.
Raising from ashes.
Check it out on Amazon. All right, so that was a nice little segue there. All right. And now hopefully I'm a future author. I got a long way to go. All right. Let's go to chapter 3. I think we at least got 2 more chapters. Proverbs 23, verse 12. Apply your heart to discipline and your ears to the word of knowledge. The hardest thing about prison is being away from your loved ones. The next thing that is hard is the time you have to do. Then it's location. So if you're doing life in a hard prison without any loved ones keeping you company and showing support, then you are hard timing, sorry. I was pretty much hard timing. All I really had for support was Chris in the cell next door. He bought me stuff on a weekly basis. He bought me stuff on a weekly basis. Sorry. I had family, but they had their own struggles. So I was on my own as far as any type of support. However, on occasion, my mom would figure out a way to send some money. Just, oh God, I can't. Sorry, I don't know why this last chapter, I'm having a hard time. My mom would figure out a way to send me some money. My mom had been doing time with me since day one, so she will always be number one in my life. Waking up in a prison cell most of my life was getting old. Chris was returning to his cell. I knew this because I heard his door close and the water running. I tapped on the wall and called him to the phone, the electrical outlet, basically. At this point, we were just calling it a phone. Where did you just come from, bro? I asked Chris. He pulled out a chair by the outlet, so I grabbed my plastic chair as well. I just came from the business office, he told me. What the hell did they want? I asked. I was on the phone with some lawyers about signing my house over again, he said. He was being asked to sign the house over to the victim's family. I kept him from signing it over at that time because there could be evidence yet to help his case. If he could hold off and get that private investigator Anna hired or even anyone else to sweep the house, it may have been helpful. He needed new facts, new circumstances, and then he could possibly get out in 20 years instead of never. What what did you tell them? I asked. Well, last time I told them I didn't have an envelope to send them the signed agreement. This time I just told them I didn't want to, he explained. Chris was getting more and more of a spine. I'm impressed. This is good news. All we have to do is find a lawyer and a private investigator, I told him. I know, but I have to give it to her family. It's the least I can do, he sighed. I'm not saying keep the house, but I'm saying hold off on signing away your wife. There could be some kind of evidence in there that could help your situation, I conveyed. He was silent, which meant he was contemplating what I just had said. Yeah, I need a lawyer. I won't sign it until I can figure out what I'm doing, he decided. How much money do you think you and your wife made per year? I asked as I curved the conversation elsewhere. Her and I together, he made well over 100,000, he said. What did she do? I asked. She was pretty successful at Sell and Thrive. She was the breadwinner out of us, he admitted. What exactly did you do at work? I asked. I was basically the guy with the clipboard supervising, he informed me. I sort of envy him for that. I would love to have a chance to have that type of job. I just hope you get your chance at trial this time so you can go back of being that guy, I said. I'm still that guy, Chris said. He was right. He was still himself. Well, you haven't turned into what people are calling you, which is a monster, I laughed. When we get out, I'll teach you what I'm really good at, he said. And what's that? I asked him. Fixing cars, he replied. I started to think, and it dawned on me that he had 5 life sentences plus 84 years. Did he have that kind of faith where he believed he was getting out? Yes, I had instilled hope in him, but I didn't think he truly had this much hope. I don't know S about cars. My brother is a mechanic. He tried to teach me, and the information never sticks. I admitted to my brother would lose patience with me often because my lack of car knowledge. When I would try to help, he would just tell me that I was in that way. Well, you're going to have to learn a trade. With all those hoes you're going to knock up, kids are expensive. My daughter's medical bills, especially. Kids get sick a lot food, clothing, and they grow fast. Daycare toys and a lot of patience, he said, and I understood. I was half kidding about knocking up hoes. I let him know. He just laughed. But you were half serious, so I gave you half of the advice like never having a clean shirt without a stain because they have puke all over them. Crying in the middle of the night, changing diapers, just getting out of a dead sleep. Are you ready for that? Chris asked me. Women change diapers. Us men come home from work and say, Woman, dinner on the table now. I laughed as he sniffed away a laugh while sighing. I was kidding. My wife would have killed me, dude. And I had a lot of responsibility with them, he said. It sounds like you were doing too much work and taking care of the kids, I said to Chris. When I came home from work, I would make food for them, play with them, bathe them, read them bedtime stories. I put them to bed. I did a lot with them some days, he expounded. He truly sounded like a perfect father, the perfect husband. What did she do? I questioned. Well, she was really busy with her job and everything it required. Some days she would do a lot with them, he told me. I gotta ask what she went so wrong with y'all that you ended up straying from Nicole, I pressed when he paused for a few seconds. I started working out and brought my weight down to like 168 pounds. Women were noticing me, and I met Nicole. She was just everything my wife wasn't like with me. She was just nice and not a control freak. We would make decisions together. Wait, how long were you two together or messing around? I thought it was 5 weeks, I asked. We knew each other for a while, but we didn't start messing around until 6 weeks before. Yeah, I was not thinking. We worked together. We had chemistry and we fell into temptation, he told me. Kind of like in the Garden of Eden, I compared. She was the forbidden fruit, he admitted. So how did she not get wrapped into any of this? I asked him. Well, there are some complications with that, he said. Like what? I asked. It took him a while to respond. Well, he says, and pauses a lot before he reveals something that is hard for him to say. She didn't exactly do much to incriminate herself, Chris admitted. I don't think I want to know, bro. I really don't. I didn't want my opinion of him to change. If he told me what I thought he was going to tell me, how could he murder the girls in cold blood? It just made no sense at all. Those little, these little girls were 3 and 4 years old. They loved him and he loved them. Just know it wasn't my hand actually doing it, he managed to say. He had told me that before, and I still couldn't comprehend what he meant by it. The traps are our doors were being popped open for dinner. Time to eat. That's all I mattered to mutter to him. And that's the end of chapter 3. So,
So you go first on this one.
all right. So at the end there, Chris is either saying,
Mm-hmm.
he's either saying, because I've heard him try to say before that it was like he was out of a body experience. So either saying it wasn't his hands, meaning either who was possessed, number one, or he's saying number two that it was Nicole Kessinger or somebody else who actually did the killings,
Mm-hmm.
which is probably what he's probably more leaning towards here. But he has said something like that wasn't like he wasn't there, like it wasn't really him. He couldn't really see him doing, like, almost like he was possessed type of thing. So he could either mean it that way or that NK or somebody else did the actual murders. What do you think?
Yeah, I definitely agree because of imagine he wasn't a monster. He actually did a lot of the things with the girls. He talked about he was bathing them and feeding them and doing that while his wife. So he had a connection. He loved the girls. How he can just do that to the girls, it just blows my mind that he can do that. So either he was possessed, he did something by drinking or getting drugged and be like, "'Cause I can't do this unless like I'm on drugs," or someone else did it.
Unless he had a lot of pressure, unless he just, went crazy for a bit, or
Yeah, but you have to do something like maybe sometime when people do things like that, they just take some drugs and be like, okay, because they're
maybe,
not in their right mind, or drink.
or maybe, again, it's all speculation.
Right, exactly.
Maybe NK or somebody else did really do something to his girls. He just let them take care of it.
Hmm.
Again, we don't know, and that's what Dylan is trying
He
to
could have just
get a
ran
hold
away with
of.
NK. Why not just say, you know what? Let's just get up and go. Right?
It was what he's unfortunately been so used to, you know, the women in his life controlling everything. So it's whatever he said. So I don't, or what she said. So I don't think he was thinking independently for himself at that time.
Yeah, he wasn't. But that's what she should have
So,
told him. Since she should have said, you know what? Let's just get up and just
well,
go someplace. And
she has a little bit of a record too, which is interesting. So I think this is the last chapter. So let's get to it, Shirak.
yeah,
Chapter 4, Proverbs 24, verse 23. These also are sayings of the wise to show particularly in judgment. Oh, sorry. To show partiality in judgment is not good. Life is simple, just one big classroom. If you don't pay attention, you fail. I had failed at life thus far. However, I was bringing up my grades back up. Oh, jeez. Sorry about this. These last two chapters, my eyes are watering really bad. Let me reread that real quick. I was bringing up my grades back up. Chris and I were at a service in the chapel. He was soaking up every word that the pastor spoke. The pastor's words were going in one ear and out the other for me, though. Usually I pay attention, but I had the weight of the world crushing me. My status was still Department of Community Corrections. I didn't have a court date scheduled. My situation was hopeless. Then again, my situation could never get worse than the man on my left, Chris, or the man on my right, Pete. They were both in worse situations than me, by far. I looked to my left at Chris. How could he be in such peace with his family dead and serving life in prison for their murders? I was going home eventually, and still I could not find that peace. I could not get comfortable. If you could pack all of your stuff and be ready to move in less than 60 seconds, then you were not comfortable. You weren't cozy in prison like the majority of the inmates. The complacency of those around me kept me from being just like them. I did not want to become yet another statistic. The walls around me, the fences, the ignorance of the majority, they all molded me to strive to be better. If there was one person that got me, it was Chris. He didn't see me how most judgmental individuals did. We kept it strictly Matthew 7, verses 1 to 2. Do not judge so that you will be not judged. For in a way you judge, you will be judged, and by your standard of measure, it will be measured to you. So you get back what you put out, which keeps us on our toes. Before I knew it, we were ending the service in prayer. I said my own prayer to God and asked that He guided me on any path that is better than being in fetters. I asked that the Lord give me the peace He had bestowed upon Chris and also Pete. The Lord must have bypassed me with serene peace because my entire life has been a war. How could I obtain a feeling that I've never known? I left my prayer up to God while I suffered the consequences of being wrong on the wrong side of the law. The one thing I clung to was hope. Hope was the one thing that encompassed me to walk the path of the square. I wanted to live a normal Christian life, but I was the definition of the direct opposite of a normal Christian life. I tried and tried to shake the thug from myself. However, it was who I was, and I had to learn to contain it. I was not very civilized. I lived my entire life on the edge, and I wasn't going to fall off again. My mind was on the path of a normal Christian life, but my heart was stuck in the trenches. I tried to fit into society. I tried to fit in while in prison. Though I tried to fit in everywhere, I didn't fit in anywhere. Oh, let me read that again. I think I said right. Though I tried to fit in everywhere, I didn't fit in anywhere. Jesus said to his disciples that they were not of this world. That being said, I was part of a bigger picture. Paul said, "For now we see in a mirror dimly, but then face to face. Now I know in part, but then I will know fully, just as I also have been fully known." 1 Corinthians 13, verse 12. So I knew my purpose in part, and apparently I wouldn't have the damn answers until I saw God. Prayer ended. Everyone said amen as I did, walking back to Unit 11. Pete was talking to me, and I'm trying to instill some sense into me. Brother, you have the spirit, a good heart, great character, nice looks, and you're smarter than most guys in here. You have a book out and you're getting out. You're going home and about to be laid up with your woman, just living the life that I may never get to experience again. If my appeal doesn't help me, Pete said to me, every word he said to me hit home and made me feel like somebody again. I wasn't felt like a scum of the earth. I felt low, like the bottom of people's shoes, an animal. I pray your appeal is successful, Pete. You deserve freedom more than I do, I said. Appeals were the one thing that gave guys hope. However, the success rate of criminal appeals is 5%. There is a 95% chance that anyone who feels they were wrongly convicted will fail at their appeal. I knew this as I walked down the hall. You absolutely deserve this. You have done all this time because of a gram and a half of cocaine and a burglary. Oh God, I can't talk. While armed, you weren't armed, and nothing was taken. Pete said, smoothing his braids back. Pete was about 49 years old, black, and had been in prison for 20 years. The people ripped me off earlier that day. I just came to get the money. I was let into the residence. I knew them, and we were just having a friendly conversation. They let us wait until the occupant of the apartment arrived. Well, the SWAT team arrived, and we went to jail. I took a plea, 5 years probation, 6 months withheld. It was explained to me that if my probation was revoked, I would serve 6 months the following year, and that I was in a position where I was told that if I didn't get signed my revocation papers, the feds would pick up the gun charges that I beat. There wasn't enough evidence to bound me over for a trial. I was told I would only do 6 months. I ended up with 17 years. 7 years initial confinement, 10 years of extended supervision. I was coming up on 12 years of that in prison. I was railroaded by a flawed system in 2008. The lawyer that represented me was drunk half of the time. That is on record. I have been sitting my entire adult life behind bars. Life is a struggle. However, healed wounds is progress. You guys better hurry up. The guards are watching you walk so slow that if it doesn't look like you're moving, Chris told me and Pete. Okay, brother, thank you. I'll see you all next service. Keep your head up and tune into the spirit because you got it. Pete instructed as he shook our hands. Why couldn't everyone be as nice as Pete? Why couldn't everyone be as humble as Chris? Though they were both in for some serious heinous crimes, I still looked at them as people. Returning to our cells, my least favorite thing in prison. I wanted freedom. I wanted fresh air and sunshine. I wanted to be free from confinement. We closed ourselves into the cells for the rest of the night. Chris slid another writing through my door before locking in. I, of course, grabbed it and looked at it. The lighting was dim due to the nightmare creeping up. In a particular entry, he focused on Jezebel yet again. I noticed the part he said, surely there was no one like Ahab who sold himself to do evil in the sight of the Lord because Jezebel, his wife, incited him. 1 Kings 21, verse 25. I knocked on the wall and waited for a response. Yeah, Chris answered. I love the entry you wrote. However, I noticed the part about Jezebel, how she incited the king to do evil. I feel like this one is personal, I pointed out. It also hit home with me, as I too had been incited by a woman to do evil in the sight of the Lord. There's a proverb that describes her. Look it up. Proverbs 7, verse 21 to 23. Chris directed me. It was getting muggy in my cell, and I was wishing that I had a fan to cool off. I obliged and looked into Proverbs chapter 7, verses 21 23. With her many persuasions, she entices me. With her flattening lips, she seduces me. Suddenly, he follows her as an ox does to the slaughter, or as one in fetters to the disciple of a fool, until an arrow pierces through his liver. As a bird hastens to snare, so he does not know that it will cost him his life. This was one of the many scriptures he used to describe this woman. This is about your Jezebel, I shouted, a little too loudly for my own taste. She was the death of me. However, I had been born again, and God put me here for his plans. He said, why would he want you in this foul place? I couldn't help but question him. The first Christians lived under heavy persecution. Look at Paul. He wrote his best work from prison. He was imprisoned 7 times for the gospel, Chris explained. We're not being persecuted. We are being prosecuted, and not for the gospel. We are at best the criminals on the cross next to Jesus, I replied, causing him to go silent for a moment. Well, Jesus came for individuals as ourselves. The first disciples were tax collectors, a murderer, and a prostitute. They were all sinners. They didn't come to call the righteous. He came to call sinners to repentance, he conveyed. I understood that, perhaps more than anyone. However, I don't think God intended for him to kill his pregnant wife and his children. It didn't sound like he intended it to either. I didn't hear the drug dealer on your list of saints, I pointed out to him jokingly. Oh, yeah, you're on top of the list, he said. So where are you on that list? I asked Chris. I could probably heard a pin drop from how silent he became at that moment. I thought he had vacated the conversation with the delay in his response. I would be considered as as the likes of Barabbas, Chris admitted. Barabbas was the murderer that was held before the crowd with Jesus and Pilate offered to release him or Jesus. No, knock it off. Barabbas was a murderer, dude. You are not. You didn't mean to kill your wife, I said, not even thinking of the children. I was closing my eyes to the facts. I didn't even want to know anymore. I loved Chris like a brother. I didn't want to look at him the way everyone else did. He was such a great guy. He was too humble and too down to earth. He cared about others. There wasn't a criminal bone in his body. This is what drew me to him and formed our friendship. He was different from what I was used to. You deserve to know. You're my spiritual twin, he said. I was sure if I actually wanted to know. Some people say that you are the company you keep. If this is true, did we click because we're both of evil spirits? No, that was nonsense. Get it off your chest, brother, I said, allowing him to tell me more of his story. Nicole kept saying not to go to the police, not yet, to lay low. She told me she would marry me. We would sell the house and everything and move. I told her that my older daughter saw everything to incriminate us or incriminate me. I told her that my wife's body was still in the house. She held me tight, told me not to worry. She said she would send someone to get it and bring it to work like nothing happened. She held me and told me that it would just be the two of us. She kissed me and made me feel that couldn't lose her. I would do anything for her. He stopped, took a breath, and exhaled. I thought I knew where he was going. I really didn't want to know. I also knew the power of love and deception. It's all right, bro. The Lord forgives anyone of any sin. You know that, I reassured him. This is what I meant when I told you that she made me choose between my family or her. The girls were what was left of my family. I chose her, he confessed. The wiles of love make people do some of the worst things. So who killed the girls? I asked a question of questions. I told you it wasn't my hand doing it. I can't remember a lot. It was like I was possessed. You know how Jezebel ordered King Ahab to kill Naboth from his vineyard? Chris asked me. I'm very familiar with 1 Kings, I replied. I knew it. She convinced him to kill his daughters. I saw myself doing it, but it was like it wasn't me. Though I was numb and on autopilot, I couldn't hurt them, so I just stopped them both from breathing, Chris managed to say. I couldn't imagine being in such a position doing such a thing. He had just called his spiritual twin. I wasn't sure I was. Then I remembered the words of Jesus where he says to forgive those of their transgressions. I wasn't the one Chris needed to ask for forgiveness. He needed to ask God. I kept it with Matthew 7, verses 1 to 2. With him, I didn't judge. I stayed on my neutral ground in his case. She helped you with your wife's body, I questioned. I really don't want to take anyone down with me. I did it. She captivated me with her smooth words, dripping honey in Proverbs 5, verses 3 through 5. She told me a dream and brought me a nightmare. She sold me a dream and brought me a nightmare. She only helped me with the order for me to kill like King Ahab. As far as hiding them, she helped me, he admitted to me. You need to start guarding. She helped me. As for hiding them, she helped. Okay. Okay, you need to start guarding your heart because that is the way overboard. What did she do when you got arrested? I asked Chris. She pretended to be clueless. He said with a sigh, "Where's she now? She don't give a F about you. As soon as you got caught up, she bailed onto the next D word. Where is she right now?" I pushed for an answer. "Nobody has heard from her or of her," he said flatly. She's in hiding in case she ends up incriminated in this mess," I informed him. As he managed to say all he managed to say was "yeah." "So what are you going to do?" I asked. "We're going to get our book, God's Plan, published, and then the people will find the truth within the truth. Then the job is done," Chris assured me with confidence. And there's the epilogue, but I'm not going to go through that to leave a little something something. Woof. All right, Shirak, go first so I drink some water.
Yeah, so this was interesting, and he basically was talking about NK again, and he realized, and when he did say something about he loved her, was it really love? Was it lust? You know, people like to confuse the two. And I think if
Yep.
you love someone, you would not really have them do things the way they did. But like I said, at the end of the day, Chris had the option to walk away and say no, but he decided to do what he did. So he's definitely paying the consequences for that.
And it sounds like that. Wait, what we're trying to read through this is perhaps NK said, "Hey, I'll get someone to go back and
Mhm.
get the body if that's even the case." Because there's mixed things. Because at one hand, Chris said that he brought the body into the truck and the kids were in the back. So everything's kind of mishmash. But it almost sounds like NK definitely helped. And this is according to Chris, so this is all
Right.
speculation. And
It's
he helped, but it sounded like
Tillman.
she gave the word to Chris, well, if your kids saw the stuff, you need to get rid of the kids. You need to figure out a way. She like gave him the order to do it,
Mhm.
and he did it, but he was kind of like felt like it wasn't really him doing it, but he was doing it to kind of make her
So
happy or to not happy, but to go with what she said basically.
right, because she promised him a fake counterfeit future that never never happened, never will happen. And
Right.
he did not see through all of that. And you can tell definitely we know for 100% sure Chris does listen to more of the women. He does not have that
Yeah,
man that
he just goes with
he,
it.
he goes with the okay, I'll yes, woman, I'll do it
She
versus him standing up for himself. And look what it let him is just kind of sad.
her words must have, whatever she said that day got him scared or got him all worked up where he went ahead and did this whole thing. And that's why he's like, whoa. But again, goes to our theory from day one, since we almost basically started the show and
Yeah.
started this case, that he had help out there. I'm just not convinced he did it by himself. And
Yeah, he
everything in
had
these
help.
books. It's so funny. 8 months later, from when we're talking about this, there's actually things to support our theory and what the
Mhm.
work that we did on that survey 319. So anyhow, really quickly before anything else, let's if you get a chance, please like, subscribe. This is not our usual normal thing that we do, these read throughs. I don't know how much we'll really do these in the future, but if you can, please comment, like, subscribe. Yeah, we do have other membership stuff too if you want to support that way. But we really appreciate you guys very much. But let's
Yes,
continue.
we
Any last
appreciate
thoughts
you.
on this whole thing?
Yes, I think it was a good read, and I would like I said, people can read it, and it's definitely something if you wanna look into it. It gives some type of more, like you said, evidence
Yep.
on because he actually did he was working with Chris, he was next to Chris in the jail cell, so and they did created a bond because he told him things that if somebody else come in there, he wouldn't say. So it's
Right.
just
And we'll put the links in description of the episode so you guys can go take a look and order the books and give support. For us, I mean, this is good. We opted to buy the books and read it
mhm,
as opposed to letting AI do it. There's pros and cons. Obviously, I slipped
yeah.
up a lot. Between my cold, my eye waters a lot. So when it waters, I can't really see the words as well. But we just want to be a little more authentic by reading it, and we
Yeah.
didn't read every little thing, so it gives you guys a little bit chance to read some more stuff, and
Well,
hopefully we gave it our own spin here to
right.
so you guys get our insights into it.
Right, and Tillman, I think it was a good idea for him to write the books. I think that was a good idea for him to at least because this case is still, even though it happened years
Hmm.
ago, it's still ongoing, and people still want that. Was NK involved,
It
and
was good
they're
he
around the
shared the
same
information.
age, 36 and 33, in the same age group, so they definitely made a great connection, and they both is into the Lord, so that was pretty good.
Yeah, and it was good that it's good that he Dylan shared this information out to the public and gave it out there.
Right.
And again, I still stand by, not to be Nostradamus on our second thing, but I do believe, and I could be wrong, that eventually I think
Oh, yeah, you keep
Chris is
saying
going
that.
to turn on her. I think this is part of it. Why would he even tell somebody? So I think this is the way it's starting to get out, and I think we'll see more and more of it, but I could be wrong.
Yeah, and when you definitely give yourself to God and you wanna confess, right? So this is a lot of
Yep.
it is just leaking out, but like you said, if even if he turns on her, is this supportive evidence, Is this something that's going to they're gonna go after her? Probably not. I
Well,
don't think
yeah.
so.
Well, yeah, it'd be, there could be a lot of things. He could spin it to
Substantial.
say maybe she was still possibly alive and NK finished it. Who knows? I don't know. I don't want to speculate, but
Substantial
let's see
evidence
what
is found.
happens. We'll see what happens. But thank you guys for being here. Check out our other stuff.
Yeah.
And by the time you're watching this, we're going to be so close to October. In October, we have a
It's
whole
flying
month of
up.
scary true crime. You're going to
Studio.
want to check that out. So
Yes, it's
until
gonna be
next
fire.
time,
Studio 70.
see you
Thanks for
later.
watching.